What's up, YouTubers? Just want to adjust my camera a little bit. Good evening. Every single day, it seems like there's more and more bad news in the United States. I just saw a video on Puerto Rico possibly becoming the 51st state. And I don't really care one way or the other, but if they were to become the 51st state, they would lose all their tax benefits. All the wealthy people from the U.S. who live there to get their tax benefits would probably over time lose them. I'm thinking of Peter Schiff, Mr. Maloney. Oh, what's that other guy? There's the big deflation investor out there. Oh, I can't think of his name. He thinks there's going to be a big deflation. Gold and Bitcoin and the stock market all going to zero. I forget his name, but he's also domiciled in Puerto Rico. Anyways, I can understand why they want to become the 51st state, mainly because the whole state is bankrupt. Well, the whole Commonwealth is bankrupt there. And they need a bailout, and the Democrats need another, they'd have a representative in Congress more than they have now, so the Democrats would have slightly more power in the Congress. So I can see why it's going to happen. Probably. Who knows? But it's just fascinating. Every day when you think things can't get any worse in the United States, wow, it's just, oh man, it's just, I just can't believe it. But the good news is I'm happy. I'm glad I have a plan B. I was just looking at some videos about Argentina, Lebanon, to name a few. The currencies of those countries have just been pounded. And not to talk too much about the black market as far as changing money there, but if you go to Argentina and you use your credit card or use an ATM card to pay for stuff, you're going to pay a lot of times, not just 2 times the price, but much, much more in some cases. But you'll be paying double the price of what prices should cost. If you take US dollar cash, you can get the free market rate or the black market rate, which isn't always easy to do. You got to, find people to change the money. But in Argentina, there's one exception to that, and that's if you go to, not MoneyGram, but that other money exchanger. They will change money at kind of close to the black market rate in Argentina. Then in Lebanon, if you go by the government exchange rate, it's 1,500 pounds, Lebanese pounds. And that's not good at all because oftentimes, depending on the day-to-day fluctuations, it can be 8, 9, 10,000 pounds. So if you go to an ATM machine, you'll get either 1,500 or 2,000 or 3,000, because what I heard is if you go to an ATM machine, you get 1,500, like with a credit card or ATM card. But if you go actually inside the bank, you can get 2,000 or 3,000. But again, you're still not close to the free market rate. If you have folding currency dollars and you go to the black market rates, it's closer to 9,000 or 10,000. 10,500 is what I heard. But I was watching some shows or some YouTubes, and you can go to like a 5-star restaurant and have like a family of friends, and you'll spend like $25 for food and drinks and everything. That's how cheap it is right now. Argentina isn't that cheap, but I can imagine it's close. But it's just sad. There's all this suffering because governments are just going to destroy their currencies. And just yet today, more bad news for Lebanon. Well, I don't know if it's more bad news, but it appears to me they're getting more criticism from the French. The French used to run the place, but the powers that be don't like the way they're not cooperating. They, meaning the Lebanese politicians, to make the place better. And it's just causing a lot of suffering for the people. Well, the same thing is going on in Argentina. They really should default on their debts in Argentina. And if I were them, I'd get a gold-backed currency or a currency board, whatever you can do politically. But that's probably not going to happen. They're probably going to get another bailout from IMF. The lower and middle classes are going to be paying extraordinary high taxes to bail everyone out. And then, on top of that, Argentina is very likely to keep ripping through their currency by printing more and more of it. Now, for us people who are outside the country want to travel in and have cash, we can pick up some good deals at restaurants and hotels. So that's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just sad to see all these world governments are just insisting on destroying their currencies, and it's the human suffering and human toll from all this is just really, really extraordinary. It's sad. And then at the same time, people from Central America want to go to the U.S., people from Haiti, just like in Europe, people from Africa want to head up to Europe. So all this, these governments are doing all these things to destroy their countries vis-a-vis their currencies. And then they don't like it when they come to their country, even though their countries are being destroyed by these really bad policies that usually the U.S., the IMF, the EU, they kind of put on these countries. It's really awful. Anyhow, I was looking at Brazil last night. That's another place that's kind of interesting. If the crime wasn't so bad, it would be kind of an interesting place to visit. I think I might put it on my bucket list to go down there. I saw like a really awesome hotel like for $25. It's almost like a 5-star room for $25. I just can't believe how cheap things are getting in Brazil, but Brazil is the kind of place, it kind of reminds me, from all the videos I see, it reminds me of the U.S. a lot, and it reminds me of like Baltimore like in the 90s. There's kidnappings, there's carjackings, lots of carjackings there. You have to be really careful when you go there. You can get kidnapped there. It's kind of the wild, wild west, but at the same time, it's like a first world, third world country all in one. Again, it reminds me of the United States a lot. They have race problems there. They have like a whole area that's like a crackhead zone area where all the street people live. I was watching, it's just like the U.S. where they have these tents everywhere, like a pop-up tent. People just live in these pop-up tents like they do in California. And they just live out on the street. And from what I saw in the video, it's just called Crackland or Crackolindia. Crackolindia is what they called it. So it's just, it's got those problems. But then at the same time, they have all these, I don't know what to call them, these kind of silly regulations and tax policies where if you want to bring stuff inside the country, it's taxed really high. So if you smuggle stuff in, you can make a few bucks. Like what some people do, like when they go to Brazil, Argentina, another one would be Peru. But they go to these countries, they bring in brand new, like Apple products, really cheap, because from the U.S. they're super cheap, and you can sell them for almost double, or sometimes more than double in these countries. Or what people do is they just go to Paraguay, buy the stuff, and then bring it back into the country. Because they just tax so much. But what's fascinating about Brazil is it's a big manufacturing powerhouse now. And I was watching the videos, I think it's in Manaus. All the big multinationals are there. It's interesting and fascinating. Well, I hate to call it the jungle, but the Amazon region, I guess is called. I'm not sure what exactly it's called, but the way the rivers in the Amazon and all that works out to how it goes. Even on those rivers, though, I saw footage of not live and in action, but footage of people talking about they're on their boats, they give some guy a ride, and then they pull a gun on him and steal their boat. Reminds me of the United States, except for carjackings, or at least Baltimore. For those of you who don't know, I grew up in Baltimore and Seattle. So when I compare countries as far as safety, I'm usually comparing them to Baltimore, because Baltimore was way more dangerous growing up as a kid than, say, Seattle. Now Seattle, it's not really anywhere near as dangerous as Baltimore even now, but there's a lot more street people there, so there's just more crime there, like petty crime and crime on the street where you get robbed, things like that. That's why when people ask me how dangerous Central America is, I said it depends on your reference, because if you grew up in the Midwest of the United States, it can really genuinely seem more dangerous. But if you grew up where I grew up in Baltimore, where like you're going to see like some pretty bad violence. You're going to see it live in living color, and you're not going to see any police there. No one's running. No police are running into these neighborhoods to stop crime, to arrest anyone. They always go in when the shooting's done, usually about an hour or two after the shooting's done. So So to me, not all of Latin America, but the nice parts of Central America seem very civilized, very low crime. I'm not saying there's zero crime, but low crime as far as violent crime against people, at least in the areas I go to. And just to reiterate, I don't suggest or tell people to go into the ghettos or the shanty towns or the favelas. I forget what they call them here, sentimentos or something like that. I don't tell people to do that, but if you're not counting those, if you're just in the nicer areas, it's very, very livable. I walk around all the time and enjoy myself. So anyways, I watched some awesome videos on like what's going on in the world right now, and the world's gone insane. There's just more currency debasement. And speaking of currency debasement, I think Bitcoin's almost at 60K now in US dollars. So it's just amazing watching Bitcoin brace up to probably 100,000. Who would have thought that 2 years ago? I wouldn't even have thought 20, 30,000, but we're on the way to possibly 60 to 100,000. And still, these governments, still right now, like I'm watching Argentina, they still, to me, seem like they're a basket case. I just cannot believe things could get worse there, but they could. And then watching Lebanon suffer, it's really awful. So I feel like I'm blessed. I'm glad where I'm at. And then I see what's going on in the U.S. The United States seems to be coming apart at the seams. I can just see more and more people, I don't know if immigrating is the right word, but leaving and living part-time outside of the U.S. I don't see people staying in the U.S. If they can afford to leave, they're probably going to leave. Especially the younger people, if they can't get a high-paying job. The cost of living is so high there now. I mean, homes, because of all the bailouts, $4 or $5 trillion, real estate prices are going up in the nice parts of the U.S. And then in some places in the U.S., like New York is a good example, where they're kind of coming down. So it's kind of a mixed bag there, but if the economy doesn't pick up a lot, I see people leaving. It's just hard to say how things are going to unfold. As of right now, today, I just keep thinking, I thought, wow, things are going to get better. Man, I have been so wrong. Like, it seems like, I mean, I can't imagine saying this, but it seems like the powers that be in the U.S. seem to want things just to get worse and worse and worse and worse. It's like I would never think they would enact all these policies that they're enacting, but they keep enacting them. So we'll have to see. As of right now, I would, excuse me, if I had a wealth or a little bit of wealth or some skills, I'd be leaving. That's just me. And I would, if you can afford it, strap on a backpack and travel the world, see where you like. As of right now, I just see parts of Latin America and parts of Asia and parts of Africa still is interesting. But that's if you're a younger person. If you're an older person, I can't speak to that as much. Even though I am getting older, I'm still attracted to what some people consider the more interesting places, or possibly even more dangerous places. But if you're really, really well off and you want somewhere safe, just head on out to Uruguay or even Panama. I don't really care for Panama, but it'll probably be okay. But from everything I see happening in the U.S. just keeps coming apart at the seams. And now the latest, Puerto Rico wants to become a state. And I could just see a big bailout there before California, New York gets bailed out. Oh, this is going to create a lot of pandemonium if they become a state. And then all the people who are domiciled there for tax reasons, like the aforementioned people, Mr. Maloney, Mr. Schiff, the other guy, I can't think of him. He's a very big deflationist in the U.S. My understanding, he lives there too, and he has that as his tax haven crib. So those little pockets in the Puerto Rico that are really, really affluent, I could actually see real estate kind of plunging there as people sell and get out before Puerto Rico becomes a state. But anyways, I'm not sure what more to add. I'm starting to ramble, but I've been having a pretty good week. I watched some pretty cool videos on what's going on in Latin America. There's places in Latin America that are starting to get affordable, like Brazil, to name one. And I don't think Uruguay is, or Peru, but they may be on the bucket list too. I definitely want to see Paraguay, Brazil. I would like to hit those northern countries, but they'd make it really expensive to go there. And you had a visa, and at least one of them I don't think you do, but I might be wrong. Suriname. Then there's that other one. I can't think of it. There's Venezuela, but I'm not going there. It's too dangerous right now. That's another fascinating place. Like, they're actually dollarizing their economy now. So the president there, Maduro, he's letting people use dollars as money. I don't know that that's going to change anything. It should help with the inflation, because then people won't be using the local currency. But I just watched a really awesome documentary on that. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, so leave it in the comments if this is true, but Cuba is so ensconced in Venezuela. Cubans and the Cuban government actually makes their passports and IDs. So partly because of the chaos there, you can't get a passport if you're a Venezuelan if you don't already have one. Another reason is you're getting that passport actually made in Cuba. That's what they said in the documentary. I don't know if that's true, but that's what they said. So if you're not willing to pay like thousands of dollars to have a passport made, and if you did something that the Cubans and the Venezuelans didn't like, you won't be getting your passport or local ID and things like that. But I don't see Venezuela getting any better, but at least now they're kind of dollarizing like Zimbabwe did. Then after they dollarized in Zimbabwe, they got right off. Shortly after that, they went back to their own currency and are inflating it away. So we'll have to see what Venezuela does, but things could stabilize there. But with Maduro in power, I'm not too hopeful, because I don't know. The world seems to be going crazy right now, and I don't know what to make of it. The more I think about it, I think maybe I should just head on out to Brazil for a little vacation, see what's going on out there. Anyways, that's it for tonight. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. And if you have any interesting any destinations you want to go to in Latin America, leave them in the comments. I'm kind of curious what other people's views on other parts of Latin America for like possible plan B. Anything rural or in Brazil or in Paraguay interests me. Some of the other countries like Suriname, those are usually hard to get any kind of residencies in though. But I'm just curious what other viewers might know or that I'm not really knowledgeable about. Anyways, have a good evening.